NFL rookies in 2020 were in an interesting situation to say the least. They were in a unique draft class in NFL history because they had to deal with a worldwide pandemic that altered their entire season, from getting drafted in their living room to no fans in the stands to no preseason and everything else in between. Every rookie had expectations heading into 2020, don't get me wrong, but with everything going on in the real world outside of football, things were going to be different, and that's all there is to it. Would rookies perform the same, significantly better, or significantly worse were all viable questions heading into 2020. Results were obviously mixed, but there were some rookies that exceeded even the wildest expectations they had going into the year, and that brings us to the topic of today's video. We're going to discuss several rookies that exceeded expectations in 2020 and have set themselves up for a very bright future. But before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. And we're going to start today's video with perhaps the most impressive performance by a rookie given his circumstances entering 2020, and it is Jags running back James Robinson. James was an undrafted free agent out of Illinois State, and won to have the most scrimmage yards of any rookie free agent in NFL history. He finished with nearly 1,100 rushing yards and over 1,400 total yards, and had 10 total touchdowns along with that. Robinson had over 4 100-yard rushing games, and had 7 games with over 100 total yards, and will be the running back that starts behind Trevor Lawrence in the first game of the 2021 season. This would be an impressive start to a career for anyone, let alone in the year 2020 was. The reasoning for that is, if this were 2019 or literally any other year in the history of the NFL, we may have seen him break out in the preseason and have thoughts heading into the regular season that this guy was someone low-key to keep an eye on, and when he broke out, everyone was already thinking it or at least had an idea. But this wasn't the case with the Jags, and especially entering the 2020 regular season. There was little buzz surrounding the Jags entering the season last year, and rightfully so, might I add. The Titans went to the AFC Championship game in 2019, the Colts signed Phillip Rivers in the offseason, and the Texans were moving on in the post-DeAndre Hopkins era, and of course with that trade, everyone wanted to see how they would do in that era. The Jags had Gardner Minshew, but aside from that, there wasn't really much buzz surrounding the team, and there definitely was not buzz around an undrafted free agent on one of the worst teams in the NFL, especially not when Lombardi Lenny, aka Leonard Fournette at the time, was still on the roster. So for James Robinson to set the record for most scrimmage yards in NFL history for an undrafted free agent, given the situation he was in, is beyond impressive. A lot of you guys have been wanting me to talk about him in a video for some time, and I couldn't think of a more fitting video than discussing rookies that exceeded expectations in 2020. Staying in the AFC South for the next player, and it is Jonathan Taylor of the Colts. Jonathan had a slow start to the year, as at a point in time I made a video about the most disappointing rookies of 2020, and Jonathan, believe it or not, was on that video, and he was the thumbnail for that video. At the time the video was produced, he had just 113 carries and 428 yards rushing, and was averaging less than 4 yards per carry. He was on pace to have just 760 yards and 7 touchdowns for a full season, which isn't bad production by any means, but it's not good either, and it's not good when that's a second-round pick of a running back that's supposed to be the future of the position for your franchise. Jonathan turned it on in the last 6 games of the year and had 740 yards in those games, which would have put him on pace for a 1,976-yard, 19-touchdown year, highlighted by his Week 17 performance against the Jags, in which he had 30 carries for over 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan finished the year with over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns and is the future of the position for the Colts. He had 78 and a touchdown in the playoff game against the Bills, and what will probably be good for Taylor is the Colts now have their quarterback of the future in Carson Wentz. Carson being there to alleviate some of the pressure off of Jonathan will be critical for his and the Colts' success, and with my guy Quentin Nelson returning for year 4, and given Quentin will probably be there for the majority of Jonathan's career, this only benefits him down the road and into the future. Taylor finished the year with 7 touchdowns in the last 4 games, and in those 4 games he had 2 of his 300-yard games, and he closed the year on pace that would have had him at 2,200 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns over a 16-game season. Now, obviously we don't expect that in 2021, but Jonathan should be a 1,200-yard back if he stays healthy. The Colts steadily started giving him the ball more and more down the stretch of the year, and that investment paid immediate dividends, as they were 4-0 when he had 20 carries in a game, and just 1-2 in games he had less than 10 carries. Jonathan had over 900 carries in college at Wisconsin, and is a workhorse of a running back, and the Colts should look to use him more in that manner moving forward. But for today's video, he is a rookie that exceeded expectations this past year. From the AFC South to the NFC South we go to discuss Bucs defensive back Antoine Winfield Jr. Winfield was a difference maker for the Bucs this past year, as well as their first-round pick Tristan Wirfs, who also exceeded expectations to be clear, and it showed in the postseason. Antoine made his mark early in his career, as he forced a fumble in the Saints playoff game, then posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "Left some grown men crying, and I don't feel sorry about it," which, by the way, was awesome. And obviously in the Super Bowl, he gave the peace sign to Tyreek, and they were Super Bowl champions. Winfield had a good year, as did most of the players on the Bucs, and he will be there for a while. He was one of just 2 rookies to have 90 tackles and at least 3 sacks, the other being Patrick Queen of the Ravens, and him and Carlton Davis played critical roles in the Bucs secondary for helping them to a championship. Devin White and everyone else did too, by the way, don't think I'm not including them. Winfield was, believe it or not, tied for 3rd in the NFL with rookies in sacks with 3. How he plays next year and moving forward will be something to keep an eye on, because there were times he wasn't the best in coverage, which is every rookie defensive back, might I add, but there were times where he was great, and there was no doubt about it. The Bucs defense will be great again in 2021, with players like Devin White, Levante David, JPP, Shaq Barrett, and Winfield all returning, at least we are assuming they are as of now. For today's video though, with the culmination of having the strip in the divisional round, the peace sign in the Super Bowl, and having 90 plus tackles in the regular season, Winfield did have a great rookie year and exceeded all expectations for a mid-second round pick. Next is Justin Jefferson, and this is obvious as to why he's in today's video. Jefferson set the rookie record for receiving yards in 2020, and if he keeps the pace what he did this year until he's 37 years old, he will break Jerry Rice's record for receiving yards. And all jokes aside, Jefferson was electric in 2020, and not only did he have a great rookie year, he had an influence across the league with the gritty that everyone got in on at some point. The gritty was popularized during the 2019 championship run at LSU, and a year later, Justin's most iconic play as a pro, so far at least, included him getting by 2 Titans defenders and hitting the gritty on the way to the end zone, which was the start of getting everyone involved with it. Defenders started doing it after sacks, offensive players would do it after touchdowns, and with Justin here, we're talking about a player that influenced everybody in the NFL, and that alone is fantastic in itself. Now, speaking from a statistical standpoint, Justin had 7 100-yard games and was the best receiver from the loaded 2020 class of receivers. Jefferson was brought along in the Vikings offense slowly, as in the first 2 games of the year, he had just 6 targets, and there were times in the middle of the year where teammate Dalvin Cook had 30 plus touches in a game, which obviously limited what Justin could have done statistically. Not only that, but Jefferson had teammate Adam Thielen go for nearly 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns on top of it. The second half of Jefferson's rookie year had him go for 54 catches for 773 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is extremely encouraging heading into 2021, as that would put him on pace for a 108, 15, 46, and 8 stat line. Very few receivers have done that in the entire history of the NFL, and Jefferson did this in the back half of his 21-year-old rookie season. His ceiling is as high as he wants it to be, and he exceeded expectations in every single way in year number 1. And the last player we go to for today's video is Justin Herbert, but please stick around as there will be several players we mention at the end. Herbert is the epitome of a rookie that exceeded expectations in year number 1. His career started by being told seconds before kickoff against the Chiefs that he was starting and going in, and since then, he never looked back. He finished the year with 36 total touchdowns, which if you would have said that a year ago, there's a good chance nobody would have believed it, and you probably would have been asked to take a drug test or something along these lines. Herbert had 8 games with 300 passing yards and 6 games with at least 3 passing touchdowns, and the Chargers seamlessly went from Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert. Franchises go years without ever finding their guy, and they have went back-to-back in what will probably be, barring injury of course, 30 years plus of 2 franchise quarterbacks. Herbert, like Jefferson, has no ceiling for how high his level of play can get in the future. Moving forward, we of course hope the Chargers roster can stay healthy, as they can legitimately contend with the Chiefs, and we could have a rivalry over the next decade of Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. For today's video though, Herbert was far and away the best rookie quarterback and exceeded everyone's expectations in 2020, even his own. Now for some other rookies that exceeded expectations, because remember, it is not limited to the ones we've highlighted, and please know that. Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from the Bucs, had a great year. Chase Young lived up to the hype from the football team given what it was placed on him coming out of Ohio State. T. Higgins, the Bengals' second-round pick, played pretty well all things considering and nearly had 1,000 yards in year number 1. Give him a full year with Joe Burrow and I am sure this will change. L'Jarius Sneed, corner from the Chiefs, played great for a rookie corner, and I don't think there's anyone denying it. And last but certainly not least, and by the way there are other rookies that did too, but Chase Claypool. Claypool had 11 total touchdowns touchdowns as a rookie and had nearly 900 yards receiving, which in an offense that was crowded with other players getting touches like James Conner, Juju, Deontay Johnson, and Eric Ebron, Claypool made his mark and will be around for the future. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world, and I will see you guys next time. And until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.